Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Kevin from the BOSSFEST podcast, here to tell you about the annual networking event going down this year in Tampa, Florida on October 6th, BOSSFEST. You do not want to miss this opportunity to be in the same room with like-minded thinkers, creators, and content people who are learning to help and teach you to grow and expand your brand. BOSSFEST going down this year, October 6th, Tampa, Florida. Don't miss out. Get in the room. Buy your tickets at www.boss-fest.com and secure your spot today. BOSSFEST. What's up? This is Kevin from the BOSSFEST podcast. Listen, if you like the content, you like following us, you can check us out on all socials, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. You can stay in contact with your BOSSFEST family and be up to date on the latest information as we drop it and deliver it. Can't wait to see you in the socials.
It seems like everybody want to be a boss these days. Everybody want to be a boss till it's time to pay out, you feel me, till it's time to pay that boss cost. They ain't trying to have them tough conversations, ain't trying to put in them extra hours, catching that windfall money, dealing with folks not being consistent. Don't get me started on the lack of sleep, but you know what they say.
Boss Life, BOSSFEST BOSSFEST podcast. Each and every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, guaranteed to get you right. BOSSFEST, the BOSSFEST podcast. They might make you laugh, make you mad, make you cry. Either way it go, it's a vibe. Tune in, catch the topic, get the tea. Ain't no shallow waters over here, we get deep. You sensitive, easy to offend, you need to flee. But them tough conversations gonna be happening. BOSSFEST podcast, they hold it down. Wednesday, 7 Eastern, man, it's going down. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and y'all gather round. Get active in the comments, don't get lost in the crowd.
Hey, what's happening? It's your man DJ Bush. I had to show love to Kevin and Edwina BOSSFEST Butler. Y'all know what time it is, the BOSSFEST podcast. But you already know what we live in.
Boss Life, BOSSFEST, the BOSSFEST podcast. Each and every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, guaranteed to get you right. BOSSFEST, the BOSSFEST podcast. They might make you laugh, make you mad, make you cry. Either way it go, it's a vibe.
Right, that was what I was.
I don't know. It might be a way to connect the audio eventually, but I ain't finna focus on it now.
Hey, TikTok land. This is Edwina from BOSSFEST. Just going live, giving a little sneak peek on us recording our first YouTube episode. So our topic is going to be how we started with BOSSFEST. I'm ready to start whenever you are.
I'm already recording, so the conversation starts whenever we start.
I'm gonna count me in or something, like goodness.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Count in.
Welcome to the BOSSFEST podcast. I'm Edwina.
Kevin, what's up? How y'all doing?
And this episode, so we're talking about, I guess, how we got started into entrepreneurship, or how, like, I guess BOSSFEST transformed into what it is.
I don't know. I just thought we were just getting on here and conversating and having a good time. If it turns into that, then it does.
Well, I feel like we should, I guess, introduce the people to our journey.
The TikTok people can only hear me. They can't see me, so we'll figure that out later.
You gotta stop. I don't know why you reference TikTok. There's no reference to TikTok on the YouTube channel. I'm just doing this separately. Don't let this distract you.
Keep talking.
I want to start all over.
Start over. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to another episode of the BOSSFEST podcast. I'm Edwina.
What's up? I'm Kevin.
And today we are talking about, I guess, how we got it started, like how we started entrepreneurship, our journey, how BOSSFEST kind of came into play, sort of.
Sure.
So, I mean, I guess I'll talk about how I started my entrepreneurship journey. Um, I was working for a company for about 15 years, and everything I knew up until COVID hit was really you work hard in your business and then you try to get promoted. People will see that you're a hard worker and you kind of level up in that company. So that's all I knew. That's what I knew to take care of my family and how you gain success. You just work hard in that company and you keep just growing and getting new positions and what have you. When COVID hit, I lost my job. So what was that about 20, was it 2020, 2021?
2020.
20, okay,
Around
so somewhere around there. I don't remember the exact time.
Yep.
But at that point, I felt really devastated because I'm like, you give so much to these businesses and these companies. And I mean, at that point, I think I was like on call, like I was a physician. Like if the company needed something, they would call me, whether I had to come in, whether I had to work on my like off time. Those were things that I would typically do so that way the company knew I was invested and I wanted to grow within that company. So once I lost that job, I really didn't know where to turn. I remember looking at Instagram and I saw a video of a friend, I guess a friend of my friend's husband, doing a video, and he was talking about how he started CBD and how that's like the next journey into like wealth. And, you know, it was really just kicking off and it was just the play. And I remember showing that video to you thinking like, maybe this is what we're supposed to do. And I want to say that video was probably our first introduction to entrepreneurship.
I think that was the first thing that kicked it off. But for me, that wouldn't have been the first thing to entrepreneurship. I just didn't know what it was. Me being involved in youth sports and running those organizations as presidents, vice presidents, and things of that nature, that was kind of my introduction into entrepreneurship. Our journey together in trying to build something for ourselves, that was definitely for us. And that was just kind of a weird thing, you know, coming home from work one day and my wife showing me a video talking about oh my God, I don't want to do my job no more. I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, wait, huh? What? Okay. So what we going to do? We going to sell drugs. Got it.
So I never thought about selling CBD as like we're selling drugs, but what I knew is I didn't want to grow.
We selling drugs.
I didn't want to grow someone else's business anymore.
You want to grow your own weed?
I mean, if I could grow my own weed, I guess I would like to grow my own weed. But I knew I didn't want to make somebody else rich. And that was the thing. Like when you work in these businesses and you're making money, let's say I ran a team, so like of 5 or 6 stores. But when you do well and you're making that company so much money, like literally your reward is here's a pizza party. And when it comes time for you to get a bonus or a raise for the year, it's like, oh, we couldn't give you quite what you're worth because the company didn't do quite as well as we wanted it to do. So, you know, here's your extra 10 cents an hour or, you know, whatever that may be. I think I was getting like a 2% bonus like every year at that point, but was really like bringing in numbers. So I'm making someone else rich while working myself to death. And I realized once I separated from that company, I didn't want to do that anymore.
So I hear you. And as you kind of elaborate on that story right there, especially as you talk about the compensation piece from the corporate space and things of that nature, I do remember those conversations playing out slightly different. And what you're saying about making somebody else rich is true. The biggest thing I think for you was, what I believe was for you, it was the value. Like you going into these people places, you're putting in this time, this effort, you're building this company, and they don't see value in you to give you what you're worth. You already know that you the workhorse, you're going to provide all the labor, you're going to bring in the numbers, you're doing all this stuff. But they don't even have the decency to say, you know what, let me at least compensate you correctly. I remember numerous times you coming in after that quote unquote yearly evaluation and being told, oh man, you know, I wanted to give you more, but we only had so much money. But then you go see such and such who was dead last in the district or trash as hell, and all of a sudden they got a 6% increase. But that's because who knows? Maybe they was a male, maybe they was a white male, all various reasons.
or why you wasn't valued. And for me, my situation was slightly different. I wasn't valued because I was quote unquote, I wasn't the uppity Negro, right? I was that leader who was very direct with my subordinates and with my leaders above me, which is why I had to respect in my team always. But the people above you, they don't like being.
They don't want you to be direct.
Yeah, they don't want you to be direct with them or call them out on their flaws and be like, "Hey, man, you want me to get on them, but you flaw." Like I can't operate in that space like that. So you start to look at those evaluations and things, and that play out. So for me, when you brought that to the table that day, I think I kind of looked at all of those things, and I told myself in that moment, you know what? Let's just go with it. It was a new endeavor. We already been in business. We already been running someone else's business, so we had the tools to be successful. It was like taking that step forward to try to branch out and become our own business. So it's been a journey ever since. It's been a journey ever since.
Yeah. So when we decided to take that leap and actually do like the CBD thing, I didn't think that we would then take on 3 businesses at one time. It really felt like we would focus on that. But what happened was, while waiting to get all of those things kind of flowing in that business, I decided that I was going to do some notary work. I was like, I'll supplement. TikTok got me. That's what happened. I was watching a lot of
social media got you. Let me say that.
Mainly TikTok. I mean, I'm just going to throw myself out there and say I do get a lot of my news from TikTok. But nonetheless, I was watching different videos, and it was a lot of people doing notary. And at that time, it seemed to be lucrative. And I just want to say seemed to be, because obviously social media does glorify certain things. But I looked at it as a way to supplement our income for our household while we were building this other brand. And then once we decided to do that, I think that's when you decided, like, hey, inside that notary business, then we'll also write some grants.
Because I didn't want to be a notary. Like, it was nothing about that seemed appealing to me. He was like, oh, you can become a notary too. And I'm like, no, I ain't doing that, but I know how to write grants, so I'll figure that piece of it out. And you came up with the name for the business, Pens Plus More. The acronym was supposed to be professional, elegant, efficient notary services or something.
Yes, something. Man, we don't even know the acronym of the thing anymore.
We might have did maybe 2 notaries, maybe
That's
3.
not true. I did a lot of notaries. You gonna give me my
5?
No. I did a lot of notaries.
10?
I did a large amount of notary services.
Like 2 notaries, and it was like, all right, we got to find a really make this money. So we started doing grants. And
so I did a lot of notaries, and what I found out, which I guess is important for people to know, like when you go into notary, like you're going to go into people's personal space. You're going to go into their homes. I was very uncomfortable with going into people's homes and dealing with their pets and just how I didn't like it at all.
Yeah. You talking about some.
I'm just not a good notary at all.
And then you trying to get me to ride in the car with you, talking about some, hey, babe, can you just sit in the car? Man, ain't this against the rules? I know.
I don't think there's rules for who sits in the car when you're doing notary.
It was like somebody, all these random people couldn't be going with you and stuff. Like, I mean,
you couldn't go into people's house, but you could, like sit in the point was, when you get into business, I'll say this, like there's definitely learns and there's trial and error along the way, but try to think if this is something like the business is actually something that you're going to like to do, because if you don't like it, you just created another job for yourself. And I think that's what I had done with the notary business. I just gave myself another job and I didn't like it.
You did. And you quit that job too.
I did. I quit that job too.
Like it was amazing. Like we went through all this class. We done gave the state all this money. Like you got the stamp with the book. Like, ooh, let me get the other little things that come with it.
I was fully invested in the notary business before I realized I don't like
notaries
the business
or people.
Yes. And it's not that I don't necessarily I definitely don't like being in people's personal space, because I would go into people's homes and they had like several pets and they don't want to put the pet up. And I'm like, I understand this is your home or the pet's home, but I'm uncomfortable here. And then sometimes the notaries may be like a little later in the evening and they kind of drag out. That also gave me a level of uncomfortability. Nonetheless, it was a no for me.
I'm gonna tell you what I think really was a no for you. Social media has sold you on you being able to get $60,000, $70,000 a year doing notaries, working maybe 4 or 5 hours a day.
Oh, it did sell me.
Oh, and it convinced you, oh man, I'm gonna do like 3-4 notaries and I'm gonna be good. And when you started seeing them calls come in, it was like $35. But you gotta drive 70 miles this way.
100%.
And you got
100%.
2 hours to get it done, plus get the paperwork faxed over and everything. Like, wait a minute, huh?
So what I didn't realize in that moment is, it's not just me looking at these videos in a time of like COVID and people trying to figure things out. Everybody was looking at those videos. So many people were becoming notaries at the same time. So those jobs that were once, I guess, lucrative for everyone else and that was paying, $150 had then become $60 to $70. And the drive was still an hour and, whatever away. And it's like you had to do the grunt drive or the grunt job so that the company would then level you up and you become like their preferred notary. But I'm fighting now against like every fifth person because now we're all notaries and doing the same thing. So it definitely brought its challenges for sure.
So no more notary ever again?
Ever again. I don't want to be a notary at all.
Does that ever run out or you just always a notary?
No, you do. You have to renew it. So like your stamp expires at a certain time and then you pay to renew it. So does like your background checks and those things, and you have to pay to renew them.
Oh, okay.
But it's a no for me. So like even if somebody passed me on the street and they be like, hey, you a notary? You notarize this? I'm gonna need you to get somebody else to do it. I don't want to do it.
Cold-blooded, dog. Like you just spent all that money, got the stamp, and you got it color-coded to your personal preference and all that. And now you don't want to stamp nobody books. But yeah.
I don't. So I mean, and that's the point. Like every business isn't for everyone. There's a lot of great notaries out there who love what they do and love the freedom that it brings. It just was not for me.
But that's the trial and error in starting a business and trying to understand what you like. Some people have a natural gift when they go into business for the first time. They've already kind of have like an ideal of what they want to do. Some people are cooks. Some people are, they can make things, whatever. And so when they say, I'm going to start this business, they already know what they're going to do. We didn't have an idea. Like, we have never had any interest in cooking, making nothing, stuff like that. It was like, but you came to the decision that you wanted to have freedom. And I need to figure out what's my niche. And I think a lot of people, when they step into this profession, it's like, man, what can I do, or what do I do well, or what is it I think I can provide that people may pay for? And we had to figure that out, which is how we started doing the grants. I knew that people wanted grants for different businesses and endeavors and things of that nature. So I started to encompass that in the business plan, and that became lucrative. It became so lucrative that I was like, dang, we got rid of the whole notary part and just did grants. And I think that first year, just playing around with it was almost a $50,000 year.
It was a really great year for grants. But again, what I felt like, so now that you were trying to like insert yourself into the business or like really help and find your way into the business, which is what the grant writing thing kind of like produced, I still felt like I had created another job for myself in that grant writing business, because then I became the person that needed to search for the grants, get the team together, because like the business grew so fast, and then we needed employees because it was too much for us to take on. And then I had given myself like almost like the secretarial like position in the notary business, but yet another job.
Yeah. So us being in corporate space, we had already moved up from what you would call the grunt work in any business, right? We ain't on the front lines no more. And when you start your own business, it's almost like you reinsert yourself back into the front lines. And if you ain't really mentally prepared for that, that can be taxing as well. And I saw it through our everyday endeavors, like answering phones, trying to converse with stuff that we do in our normal 9-to-5 worlds, or that we can do. It just seemed like, man, now it's our own business, it's our own name on the at stake. So we're trying to make sure we do up and beyond, provide extra service and attention to things. And the one thing we learned in business is that just because you respect your business don't mean anybody outside of your business has to respect it.
100%.
And when you start dealing with certain customers or clients that don't really have no respect for your business, and even with you trying to help them, it just becomes a wild situation. It's crazy. Like, I'm trying to help you find funding for your organization. I'm just saying, hey, can you do the little stuff? And people like, oh, I got to do that? Like, crazy.
So I feel like we kind of gave them a background. So now we're at business number 2. And then what we decided to do is kind of I want to call it, like, I normally tell people it was a business shower that we were creating, but more like a pop-up shop. An introduction to the community is what we were trying to do, so that people knew that we now have 2 businesses that we're trying to bring into our local community and really introduce people to who we were. Because for years, it's just go to work, come home. We don't know a lot of people in our own community because we focus so much on just working and building a life for ourselves. So we really wanted to do an event to introduce our small business to the community and then encompass other people's small businesses as well.
No, that was a play. And the reason behind that is true. We wanted to bring light to our businesses, but it wasn't because we thought that this was the great thing to do. We realized through trial and error, this may be the best option to get one of our brands more visibility. Anything dealing with CBD, hemp, marijuana, anything like that is still federally regulated. And anything you put on social media, you talking about any of the benefits or however you want to describe it, will flag your page, will shut down your content. And the moment, and the very moment you try to showcase anything that's good, bad, or whatever about it, you flag. So the pop-up shop became a necessity to really showcase the hemp business, but we said, okay, we can showcase both businesses at the same time.
So I disagree with what you're saying.
Ooh,
so
you disagree?
Yes, because my idea was never to showcase Hypnotize Me. Like, when we first put on that pop-up shop, I feel like there was a lot of work that I was doing as far as putting on the pop-up shop. And for me, the first priority was to showcase pens. That first pop-up shop, if anyone goes back to research it, it was called Pens Plus More Pop-Up Shop. So I know you're saying now in the moment that it was to showcase that business, but it wasn't. And at that particular time, I don't feel like you have fully gotten invested into what it was yet.
I'm still struggling. So you ain't lying then. You definitely not lying. Invested. I'm like, man, this 9 to 5 is getting hectic.
So my main goal was to really show, like, hey, the community, the grants have started to pop off. This is what we now showcase. And I'm like, if we're going to showcase one business, why not showcase both? But it really was a coming out of Pens Plus More. And it did do, in my opinion, what we set out for it to do. I think we left, that pop-up shop with several new clients. People kind of knew who we were, and people were starting to invite us to different events, also refer us to other people who were interested in the service. So much so where I just think things just grew really too fast. I can't hear myself. They grew too fast, more than we could actually catch up with. Is kind of what that was. So, but that was the first event. It didn't even have a name. We didn't call it BOSSFEST, but I do feel like it was really successful, and it showed us hey, a community can come together, small businesses can showcase themselves, and this is what we can do. So that was our first BOSSFEST event, even though we didn't have a name. And then we went to do the second event, and we really incorporated the vendors as well. But we had started ourselves going to business conferences to get education. And that was our thing. Let's start to encompass some education into this. If we have so many small businesses in the room selling their products, why not level up and throw some education in there? Why can't they leave with something to help their business for the rest of the year? And that was the thought process. And that's when speakers really came into the mix. That was year 2.
I hear you. For me, it was the education piece came into it because of the grant writing aspect of it. There's a term we like to use. It's called being grant ready, and it's having all the necessary things in your business that showcase that your brand and your company is ready to receive this type of funding. Right? There are certain things you got to have lined up, and for a lot of people that was coming us talking about some, we want to do. Can we do a grant? Of course, we young in business. Oh yeah, we'll write you a grant. Da 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 da. We ready to go. But then once we start the process, we're like, man, okay, you supposed to be an established business owner. You've been doing this for how many years? But you don't even have an EIN. Only thing you have is a name. Okay, you don't have a real bank account, so you cross mingling your funds. Like, oh my God, like I gotta help educate you now. So for me, it was more or less when the education piece came up, I saw a gap, especially in our communities where a lot of people still just getting it off the muscle, but we don't have to keep grinding that hard if we just know the game, if we know the rules. And a lot of times when you're talking to another minority business owner, they like to use the term, God did a lot. And, God is that driving factor that helps us all grow and become better. But, faith without work is dead. So for me, it was like, man, what is the work? How can I help deliver the work? I have the faith. They have the faith. Let's deliver the work. Because everybody I would ask, like, hey, man, how did you get your business started? Well, I prayed on it. God showed me the way. Did God take you down through the website? He didn't do that. Well, show me that process. So for me, it was like, let's get this piece in front of people as well. So that way it can be better at this.
So, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying in that aspect. For me, it was taking some people who, I guess, local people would think that they're ideally like the ideal entrepreneur, and a lot of people may look up to, and them being able to tell the work they put in to get to that space and how they maneuver and keep that going. So I guess both things are honestly true. And that was like the second term. And then when we went into the second event, one of our decor people was telling us like your event would get more traction if you actually called it something. And then we went and we thought about that, and we were like, we do need to call it something. That way it's completely separate from like these other two businesses, and people understand how to relate to it. And then that's how BOSSFEST came.
And that's how the third business came.
So then BOSSFEST became a third business because we were like, it needs its own identity. And then we started doing podcasting. And then once we started doing podcasting, we were just like, the
podcasting was to promote the event. And then once the event was over, it was like, well, what do we do with the podcast? It's like, okay, let's keep educating. We can keep delivering that information, those tangibles and things of that nature. So, we just kept trying to figure out more ways to deliver information through game. And what we discovered through the podcast is that us coming from corporate space, us being bosses in those worlds, husband and wife, having a family, living under one roof, and the challenges that came with being a couple, now trying to go into entrepreneurship and those struggles, that became more of an interesting story for people to hear sometimes versus the education. And we just try to, all right, let's tell you about what we got going on, then encompass the education with it. Because if I tell you, hey, we done probably almost filed for divorce 7 times since we started these businesses, that is not a lot. Like one time she put the paper in my face and slid it over to me and said, here, sign it. It's like, but it's your notary signature, so it's invalid.
That is not, it did not have my notary signature on it.
Like, this is fraud. You ain't finna scam me.
It did not have my notary signature on it. But what you're saying is 100% true. So it became now through the podcast, people were able to see the ups and downs. And in business, what a lot of people, like if you're in business, then you understand like one day could be a really great day for your business. And then the next day you could feel like completely defeated. So when you get on and you watch the BOSSFEST podcast, you're going to see all of that. The hardest thing that I've learned in business is to have my husband as a partner, because what we still haven't figured out is when the business stops and then the personal starts. So if we're in a meeting and I say something and he doesn't agree with that, we still carry that same energy through dinner and like through like bed and all of that stuff. And it's really trying to figure out where that stops. And then you're talking about two people who are bosses in their regular life coming together, and someone has to be like the subordinate in some situations. Like someone should take the lead and someone should understand like what support system do you need me to be. And a lot of times we were finding in business where we both were trying to be the boss and we weren't getting anywhere. So through my struggles in creating Boss Fest and now us having 3 businesses together, I still think that's probably the hardest thing for me, is really just working with you.
No, it's definitely a challenge, because in any business, even though people say they have partnerships, we are married, so we are partners. But this marriage is, I'm the head of the marriage. I'm the head of the household. My wife looking at me crazy. One of these cameras
crazy.
But I am the head, so that is defined. There are certain roles and responsibilities that are placed upon me that I understand I have to do. As we learn and gravitate to this stuff, I try to become a better man through the process. Same way as it is in business. Somebody got to be the boss. And a lot of times, since she was the one that put us in these spaces, she becomes the boss. But then,
go say some truth in this.
My energy will kick in from time to time, and I'll be like, man, I don't really want to hear it. I want to go this way. And that's when we start to have some of our conflicts. But then I don't really want to, I want to be the boss for like a few seconds, then give it back to her. And
be 100% transparent. So I feel like now we're getting a little bit off the story.
That's the story.
Be transparent in this, because I feel like you want to be the boss, especially when there's a lot of male energy around you. I feel like that's when I see you try to boss up the most. And I'm like, hey, I've been running the play for whatever this project is the whole time. But the moment the energy changes and now there's a lot of male energy, then you come, you're like, well, I got it from here. I'm like, that's not even what we agreed upon.
So when there's more masculine energy around, I'm making my presence more felt and more known. Yes, I would do that.
But even if it wasn't anything that you cared about before, which again still makes it hard in this business partnership.
Shit, I'm territorial. I'm a lion. Hey, this is my territory. I don't know what to tell you. I find this
comical what you're saying.
I'm just saying, that's my territory. So I'm just trying to make sure I mark my territory. I don't know what else how to describe that to you. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, and I can't say so that's like the journey on what got us here. And now Boss Fest has just really transformed itself into a business conference. So it is a business conference. We haven't left the idea of vendors, because we still feel like it's important to showcase, the small businesses in the area. And we still run, of course, our small businesses. So we haven't left that idea, but it is now more of a conference feel. So people now get in the room at Boss Fest to learn game, to level up in their business, to meet their next, their next partner, see their next coach, their next mentor, figure out what connections they can make. And just like Boss Fest happens in October every year. So they're really like starting the 5th quarter, really strong going into the new year. So those are the things we try to bring in Boss Fest. But we still do this podcast every day, because although we're growing and we're learning, we still have our own challenges. And like I said before, the challenge for me still is when we sit down and we come up with these plays, having to work out who's the boss in this, be network and work with each other. And it's just an everyday tug of war on how we're doing business. And we like for people to not only see like the amazingness that happens on the stage, but also the behind the scenes and the people who we are. Because when you look at like your coach or the entrepreneur that's like doing really well in business, they weren't always doing well. And it's easy to like say, dang, why is it not me? But now you get to see like the struggles behind that. And one day we will be, like way up there. And then people can always refer back to, they really put it all out there for us to see.
So for the day, you get to see us at our living room table with the curtains in the background, with us hanging the Boss Fest sign on the wall where we took down a family picture, because it got to start somewhere, damn it. You got to start your grind somewhere. A lot of people be ashamed to show the grind because they just want to show the success. I ain't got time for the fake success. I ain't finna be out here wearing a whole bunch of fake jewelry I don't got on. I ain't finna be driving a whole bunch of fake cars, rentals, acting like
I was gonna say fake cars. How the car fake? It's a rental car.
Boy, it ain't my car.
Okay.
I'm taking pictures beside somebody else shit. Like, ooh, look what I got.
I'm not gonna count. I take a picture beside somebody else's car, but
and be like, this what I got.
No, I mean, so to be clear, when I see entrepreneurs do that, I don't necessarily think they say this is my ride. I think they just let you assume it's their ride. Fraudulent.
Still fraudulent. That ain't my play. And I think that's why when we do make it, because it ain't a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yes.
Whether it's this year, next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, hopefully it ain't no damn 10 years from now. But whenever that success gives us that green light, that now all the work that we've accumulated up to this point is now generating the funds that we need to truly live the life we want to live. I want to be able to say, you know what? I did it my way. I didn't compromise myself. I didn't have to go to no Diddy party. No mind.
Right.
My bad. I'm just saying.
But I understand what you're saying is that you were true to yourself. I think a lot of times in business, people don't feel like they can be their true authentic selves. And that's really a hard thing. I think the entrepreneur is different. I remember when we first started doing this, we were thinking like to show up for grant writing, we got to have on like suits and, be like really like business dressed up or whatever. We show up in jeans now because that's just who we are. So you're getting our authentic selves, and we don't feel like we have to put on something else that we're not to be able to come and, do business. So I think the perception of the entrepreneurship is changing while we're doing this. And I just think a lot of things in the world are changing. And for me, in my world, it started with COVID.
No, COVID was that catalyst for a lot of people. And as you're starting to see, as we're now beyond COVID, you see the people that's still going, and you see the people who started something who fell off. A lot of people came out here being influencers and coaches and mentors and stuff. The ones that were scammers, they done fell off. Whatever bag they was able to make, they made it. They done disappeared. They gone. The people that still out here grinding, the ones who really was putting in the work, getting the education, delivering actionable items to people, they still out here doing success. And that's what we want to be. We want to be those people that still delivering actionable items so that businesses can grow.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I know like we have mentors and we've done coaching programs. And the biggest thing for me is the step-by-step action items. That's what takes my business to the next level. And sometimes it's only like somebody can say one thing and you start processing that and how can I implement that myself? And we've seen like tremendous growth in some things because of that. But that's what we try to bring to the stage. Like it can be one word, it can be one connection. And I always tell Kevin, I'm like, man, we're one connection in between the person that we need to be connected with. Like it's just one difference between us and that person. So you just got to keep grinding, and it gets hard. And like even with doing BOSSFEST, the event itself, like there's a lot of days, and he'll tell you, like I'll just be like, man, I don't know why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep getting ourselves into this? And then it takes for the other one to be like, we just got to keep pushing through. Like you can't stop. You lose momentum, and then you end up starting over. You just got to keep going.
So that's pretty much it. Like, I don't want to stop the momentum. A lot of times we look at these things like, man, I don't want to keep putting myself out there.
Are my pockets out there either.
Right, because it's not like we come from like I said, we do okay in our corporate jobs. What we wasn't doing okay in our corporate jobs was freedom to escape the job.
Yes.
Because we're those leaders where even when we're not on physically in the building, we're always on the clock, and people can reach you, contact you, call your work phone, call your personal phone, send you an email. Then all of a sudden people know you ain't in nowhere near the building, but you need to answer their stuff immediately, from bosses to employees and everything else. It was even bad, like going on vacations and be like, man, I have to take my work phone or my laptop because just in case something happened, I need to be able to answer this question for them. And I was like, man, I do not want to keep living in that type of space. If I'm going to take my computer with me or my laptop or my phone to take care of business, it needs to be my business, not
and
somebody
I'll tell you,
else's
when
stuff.
I lost that job, that's what taught me that lesson. because like when you're in a job and you're in it so deep, and you can remember this from like the job that you lost, you feel like you are that important. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I am the only person that can answer that question. It's my business. It's my team. So I got to get them that information right away. But when they replace you, when something happens, that business runs just fine without you. And that's not what I tell myself. They don't need me like they portray they need me. I don't need to answer my phone. I don't have email on my phone anymore. Like, if I don't want to answer an employee now, I don't. And for me, freedom was the biggest thing. And it's like when you're doing your own business, there's freedom. And it's taken us a while to learn that. Because remember when we were doing the grant writing business, we had this package where you can contact us like whenever, like we'll be available to you whenever you need.
Oh yeah, we said some stupid. Oh man, call us whenever. Man, you have
a business question, just reach out and call us and we'll be available. People were calling us at 11 and 12 o'clock at night to ask us a question about their business. And then we thought, wait a minute, this is worse than like corporate world.
Like, and be mad like, oh, I called you. Like, you can't call me during normal operational time hours. Oh, I'm not up then. Okay. So we had to understand certain people, businesses are ran off different times, and just some people, just
right. So it's trial and error in business. So, but then we change that. You know what I mean? So you have to learn those things in business, and then a lot of things that we were able to avoid because we were in the room with other people and we were able to hear the story behind other people. I think I learned from Marquel for the first time, it's okay to fire a client. Like, if you know that this isn't a good fit and hear myself in your personal space, that this is causing you more stress, it's okay to say, hey, I'm not the right fit for your business, and refer them somewhere else, or just tell them, I don't think this is going to work out between us. Because we had clients that we were taking on that was just really stressful. And then you start thinking, wait, was my 9 to 5 better than this? So all of it is just really, like trial and error. And that's what we bring on the podcast. Like, we just tell it all.
We do bring the trial and error, and we try to be as transparent as possible with everything we do. Sometimes a little transparent, but I think that's
a little too much.
Yeah, I think that's what's missing in life in general. Like, a lot of times, it's so much deception, and people don't know how to decipher the real. So I think when people get a dose of reality from people that's keeping it 100 with them, it's refreshing. Like, I can relate more to someone that's saying, "Hey, man, I'm struggling a little bit," but you go listen to some other people, they be like, "Man, don't you tell nobody you're struggling. You tell people you're struggling." And they won't buy into the product. They don't want to believe in you and don't want to invest in you. Man, forget that. I'm struggling. I need help. Maybe the person that I may reach out there who sees me struggling, I say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Maybe somebody like, oh, I know how to solve that for you. But if I sit here and I keep it quiet and keep it to myself and act like ain't nothing wrong, then I'm going to continue struggling in silence. So, BOSSFEST, we don't struggle in silence. We gonna struggle out loud until somebody hear us. We keep screaming help.
So I will say that is an important lesson that I learned in business, is ask for help, because as a business owner, you can't do it all by yourself. You need the right systems in place. And sometimes you don't know the system that you need in place until you actually ask about it. And a lot of times in business, we've had very small fixes that fix major problems, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Like, social media for me has just always been like, oh my God. And then I found, hey, you could schedule those social media posts. And it's just really educating yourself, but you don't know what you don't know. So for me, that's been like the biggest hack in business, like, which is why we keep getting in the rooms. We keep going to conferences, is because I know we're going to leave that room with something that we didn't know, something to help us like level up, basically.
That's amazing. Scheduling my social media posts. I got to get better with that. Like, I think what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to pick a day, maybe a Sunday where, sitting around, put my social media content together and just schedule it for the week.
Remember when you said that like 2 years ago you was going to do that?
Yeah, I said that. I still ain't did it.
I remember this same conversation. Kevin is the worst procrastinator ever.
I'm not the worst procrastinator ever. There's somebody out there that got to be worse than me.
I don't know
I
them
believe
then.
it in my spirit.
He is the worst procrastinator that I know.
Listen, man, Trump been trying to build his wall for 9 years now. I think he got All I'm saying is can't be the worst procrastinator.
You're the worst one that I know.
Fair
I do
enough.
remember you saying 2 years ago you were going to schedule your post, but that's the whole point behind like just needing the education. So, and you can't get the education without putting in the work. So people can tell you all day what you need to do, but if you don't put in the work, it's all pointless.
It's all pointless if you don't put in the work.
And people ask us all the time, like why BOSSFEST, why get in the room? And for us, it's twofold. One, we want to bring education to people around us. We are heavily focused on minority education. And the reason that is because we feel like it's a demographic that doesn't get the education and the help that they need. Like Kevin said, just being in the community, a lot of people who we saw doing business for years, once we went to help them, realized their businesses weren't set up. And they didn't know what they needed to actually set the business up correctly. And that's why we bring, the education to the people. So not only are we bringing it to people, we're learning ourselves. So we show the journey when we're getting in the room and the people we're getting next to. But every event, we learn something else that we can take away as well. But I mean, it only helps you is if you go and get the education. So if you don't get in the room, what's the point?
I get it. For me, I like the event because I know I'm gonna get something out of it, and I was gonna work on myself anyway. So it's perfect. I just want to make sure as many people who are along this journey with me, who say they in it together, that I can provide a stepping stone for them as well. Because I'm not one of them people who, once I make it, I'm working on my nose very quickly. Like I'm gonna know the hell out of some people. Hey, can you know? Listen, it's gonna come so harsh to people. They gonna be like, damn. Because as I'm starting to develop more of a business sense, I realize the more you tell somebody yes to things, especially when it comes to finances and trying to help them and do all the other little things that come into play, the more they no longer appreciate it, but they start to expect it. And once people start to expect you gonna always say yes to things, that's when problems arise. So I don't want to get to a point where now I've built that financial freedom and stability in my life that I want. Now people see the success side of that because I will show it once I get there.
Okay, so you're gonna take pictures in front of the car then?
I'm gonna take pictures in front of cars, but it'll be my car.
Okay.
But once I get there, I don't want people like, oh man, remember when you got it out the mud, man? I'm just trying to figure it out and da 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 too. I'm like, man, when you right there beside me when I was telling you all this stuff and you was trying to talk me out of my dream, man, you gotta listen. I laid all the steps for you. It's in podcasts, it's in videos, it's in all that stuff. Go for it. Oh man, you can't give me. I did. That body of work is my commitment to you that it can work.
I mean, that's pretty deep. I know you're saying it like jokingly, but that body of work does stay there. And that's like important because again, like what we were saying, we're showing people the journey and it's not easy. And I do feel like right now, when you start telling people no, like I almost feel like people just dislike you, when you start saying no, like, like what's her problem? Like, I just feel a certain type of way when you start saying no to people. So I heard that maybe it was on a podcast. I don't know where that information came from. I know 50 Cent said it.
Gotcha.
But you have to start working on your nose early because people do start expecting things from you. But for some people, the no's become harder because people start to feel a certain type of way. And you don't want people to feel like, hey, she doesn't want to work together. She's not trying to be, collaborative. But I don't want to feel used either. So, I mean, that was just a tough one.
No, that's definitely the word.
But I've been in situations. So I know like through all of these events, because we're on year 4, we've had committees. And I know I've put together committees and I've asked people in the community who I felt like probably had education or something that we were lacking that they could add value. And like, hey, can you support me? But in being a part of the committee, then it was almost like an obligation to now have to like buy from their business and do this. And while we try to make it where like people can shed a light on their business through BOSSFEST, however that means to them, whether that's doing vendors, being on a stage, whatever, we do try to give them their space. But then it became like I couldn't say no to like whatever your business was now offering me. Or people felt like they had a special connection to me. So if my other business was doing something, I automatically have to do business with your business. And then once I said no, or this isn't lucrative, this doesn't make business sense for me, and the answer was no, it's like as though the friendship or the connection completely turned off. So it's like I wasn't allowed to say no to other people.
So let's start working on those no's early so they often know. You probably going to say no, ain't you? You already know.
Or like, you know, maybe the answer is no right now, but let me just think on it. You know, like I'll let you know if I change my mind. I don't know. I don't even know how we got into the no conversation.
Don't let me think on a no, because it's still no.
You don't even think on it. And if you say, let me think about it, you really were just saying no.
I pretty much just told you no. I just didn't want to say it directly in your face in that moment because I ain't want to have to deal with the consequences of saying the word no. You know, that should be a topic. Dealing with the consequences of saying the word no.
I think that would be a really good topic because when you talk about no in our household, like if you tell me no, all hell gonna break loose.
Right. The consequences of no.
But I definitely think we should write that down. That should be a topic. But and going back to like our journey of BOSSFEST, I don't know what's next for BOSSFEST. What I do feel like though, and this is like our first time ever talking about this, so hopefully I don't like blow you away, but I think we should change the name of the podcast.
Wait, what?
Because BOSSFEST is the event, right? And people understand like, this is where bosses come to collaborate.
Okay.
But as we go through the journey and we do our year-round podcast, which is also called BOSSFEST, what I really feel like the podcast is two business owners having that connection in both life and business, coming together at a boss table and really just giving you the real raw, like what it is. And is that really BOSSFEST? Did that make sense? I think we should change the name of the podcast.
We're probably going to
encompass more of what you see when you're sitting at the boss table listening to two bosses that are connected in both business and life. And we're just showing you what our journey looks like as raw as it can be. So I think when people are connecting to us, because the name BOSSFEST could lead to like different ideas of what that means, that maybe the podcast should have a different name. Maybe somebody out there who watches this can help us like figure that piece out. Like maybe BOSSFEST is still like the large umbrella. And then, you know, this extra business that I have somehow now created on this podcast for us does something else, but it lets them see like, this is probably a podcast I should listen to and connect with.
Right. I just don't want to create a fourth or fifth business.
Yeah.
Because it will become an additional business.
I got quiet. I don't know what to tell you with that, but what I'm saying to you is BOSSFEST, I feel like is great. And when you talk about getting in the room at BOSSFEST, that's what it is. It is where bosses come, collaborate, and network together. But on this podcast, you have two bosses talking about real life. And is that the same? Maybe we should just leave the podcast. Like maybe I should just leave it there. We should reconvene. I feel like your mind is now thinking, and maybe our first intro to YouTube was we changing the name.
We changed the damn name. Our first intro into YouTube is going to be we changed the damn name.
So welcome
to whatever this is in the future.
Right now, it is the BOSSFEST podcast, and we are two bosses living real life, real raw, and bringing it all to you to connect. I am Edwina.
And I'm Kevin. Until next time, peace.